Welcome, dear listener, to a journey back in time where winter's breath ruled and the world was carved from ice. Today we step quietly into the shoes of those who labored in frost and shadow, the ice cutters who shaped survival from frozen rivers in relentless cold. Let the gentle rhythm of their story soothe your mind as we explore a life of hardship, endurance, and silent strength. Find a cozy place, breathe deep, and let the cold world melt away as we begin. You awaken before dawn, when the world is still wrapped in a soft, lingering hush, the kind of quiet that presses gently against your eyelids, coaxing you to linger just a moment longer beneath the coarse woolen blanket. But you know better. Today, like every day in the biting heart of winter, you must rise and venture out into the cold, relentless world beyond your door. The sky is an endless gray sheet, and the breath you exhale curls like tiny, delicate ghosts that vanish before your eyes. This is the life of an ice cutter, a soul tethered to the frozen rivers and lakes that harden under winter's breath. Before the magic of refrigeration, before humming machines and blinking lights promised, endless cold you depended on the ice itself to keep things fresh. To guard the perishables of a time when meat and milk were gifts only briefly kept from ruin. Your hands already numb from the morning's chill clutch the rough wooden handle of the ice saw. It's a tool you know better than any other, worn smooth by countless winters and countless cuts. The blade, thick and unforgiving, glints faintly as you begin your march to the river's edge. The world around you is a landscape of ice and snow, a frozen mosaic that stretches farther than the eye can see. But make no mistake, this work is miserable. It is a life lived with frostbitten fingers and aching backs. You are no romantic figure gliding across glittering ice. You are a laborer, battling the elements and your own exhaustion for the barest of rewards. You remember the first time you saw the ice cutters at work, how their powerful arms swung the saw in wide rhythmic arcs, biting into the frozen river like giants cleaving a silver mountain? You were young then, naive to the cruel demands of this craft. The cold seemed almost beautiful, the sound of the saw a strange, almost musical rasp. But that was before you became one of them. Now every day is a slow surrender to the bitter embrace of winter. The cold seeps through every layer of clothing, through your shirt, your jacket, even the thick leather gloves that are supposed to protect your hands. Your breath is a constant companion, visible and fleeting, and your skin feels raw as if kissed by frost itself. You are here because the world depends on this ice. Merchants and butchers, fishermen and brewers, they all wait for you to harvest winter's gift. To chisel away blocks of frozen water that will survive the thaw in dark cellars and wooden ice boxes. Without you, food would spoil, beer would sour, and summer would bring misery in place of ease. But the work is grueling. With each swing of your saw, you carve away not just ice, but pieces of your own endurance. The cold bites deeper with every cut, and your muscles scream beneath layers of frozen fatigue. Your boots crunch on the crust of snow as you drag the heavy slabs from river to shore. Your body bent low under their weight, every movement a testament to your stubborn will. Sometimes you glance up, watching the pale sun struggle to rise, its weak light failing to thaw even a fraction of the world's icy grasp. The sky is an endless canvas of muted blues and grays, and the river below you gleams like glass, solid and treacherous. Your hands sting from the cold, your face is windburned and cracked, but still you work. You are a craftsman of winter's harsh bounty, a guardian of cold in a world that knows no other way. As the morning wears on, the other cutters arrive, their breath misting in the frigid air, their faces flushed from effort and cold. They nod at you, silent acknowledgments between comrades bound by hardship. There is no grand ceremony to this work, no glory in the harvesting of ice. It is dirty, backbreaking, and often lonely. Yet, beneath the misery, there is a strange rhythm, a dance of saw and ice, frost and muscle that sustains you. The ice must be cut, must be stored, must be delivered. For without it, the world would lose a precious secret. The gift of cold, the promise that even in the hottest months, the chill of winter could be held close, a small mercy in an often harsh life. And so you continue, saw in hand, heart steeled against the cold, carving away winter's frozen breath, one heavy block at a time. Before you step foot onto the ice, There is a ritual of slow, deliberate preparation that must be observed if you hope to survive the day's cruel demands. You stand before the small hearth in your cramped cabin, where a weak fire sputters its last embers. You cup your hands near the flickering warmth, feeling the heat seep slowly through your frozen skin. It is a small comfort in a world ruled by cold. The clothes you wear are rough and heavy, layered with care. Thick wool beneath sturdy leather, patched trousers, and a coat that has weathered too many winters. Each piece is soaked in the scent of smoke and sweat, of frozen mornings and the river's icy breath. You pull on your boots, stiff with cold and crusted with last week's snow, and tighten your gloves. They are your armor, though a fragile one. Outside, the cold waits patiently, a silent predator that will test you at every step. The sky remains a heavy slate, clouds hanging low like a shroud. You can almost feel the river beneath the ice, dark and slow, locked beneath the frozen crust. It is a treacherous place, promising safety and stillness, but hiding danger beneath its glassy surface. Your neighbors, fellow cutters, gather in muted clusters, exchanging few words. The ice cutter's world is one of stoic silence and shared hardship. Conversation is scarce voices, are reserved for necessity. Laughter is rare and brittle like the ice itself. You recall the first time you donned the heavy gear, the awkwardness of moving in so many layers. You stumbled, clumsy, unsure of how to wield the saw and axe without tipping yourself into the freezing river below. But with time, your body learned the movements, the dance between tool and ice, the steady rhythm that sustains. Today, as always, you feel the creeping weight of dread, the knowledge that this day will not be easy. There is no such thing as warmth out here, only fleeting moments stolen beside small fires on the shore, or huddled against the wind's sharp bite. You step outside, the cold immediately biting at your cheeks and nose, making your eyes water. You pull your scarf tighter, breath steadying as you move toward the river's edge. The world is still quiet here, the frozen surface stretching wide like a pale mirror reflecting the dull sky. Before the saws come out, the ice must be inspected. Layer too thin can spell disaster breaking under your weight, plunging you into the freezing water. You test the surface with a heavy stick, listening for the hollow sound of dangerous thinness or the reassuring thud of solid ice. This is a silent moment, a pause before the labor begins. You feel the vastness of the frozen river, a quiet world suspended in time and temperature. It holds the lives of many fish trapped beneath, the winter's secrets locked away in ice. Once deemed safe, the cutters spread out in a careful formation, marking the blocks with long straight cuts to be made. The work requires precision as much as strength. The blocks cannot be too large or too small. They must fit the storage houses and ice boxes that will keep the food cool for weeks. You lift your saw, feeling the familiar weight and balance, the rough wood worn smooth by countless hands before you. The blade is sharp, but even the sharpest steel must battle against the stubborn ice. Every stroke sends a spray of icy dust into the air, tiny crystals that sparkle briefly before melting on your skin. The rhythm is slow and steady sawing, pulling, steadying. Your breath comes in white bursts, your muscles tightening against the cold and the effort. It is a conversation between you and the ice, one measured in sweat and frostbite. Sometimes a block will fracture unevenly, sending shards flying like glass shards. You learn to anticipate these breaks, to adjust your angle, your strength, your patience. The ice is a living thing in this moment, resisting and yielding in turns. You catch a glimpse of your fellow cutters, their faces etched with the same lines of weariness and resolve. There is no boasting here, no songs or shouts, just the steady hum of saws and the crunch of boots on ice. Time seems to stretch, a slow frozen river in itself, marking the passage of a day measured in cuts and blocks. And though your hands ache and your back groans beneath the weight, you keep moving forward. Part of a long tradition carried out under the indifferent gaze of winter's sky. The sun, if it can be called that, remains low, casting a pale light that does little to warm. But you don't expect warmth out here. You expect survival, expect cold. And, somehow, in this harsh, frozen world, you find a strange kind of purpose. You settle into the rhythm, the steady, unyielding pulse of the saw biting through ice. It is a sound both sharp and muted, like a whisper of winter's own breath, a grinding promise that time will yield to effort. With each stroke, the cold sprays up in tiny shards, sparkling like frost caught in sunlight, only to dissolve against your raw skin moments later. Your arms tire quickly, but your will hardens. This is not a task for the faint or the slow. The ice resists, stubborn and unbroken, refusing to part without protest. You lean into the blade, muscles taut beneath frozen clothes, every movement precise and purposeful. The saw sings its relentless song, a harsh rasp that echoes across the frozen river, bouncing off the icy banks and lost somewhere in the gray sky. Around you, others labor with the same steady focus, their saws joining in a somber symphony of human determination against nature's indifferent fortress. You remember hearing once that before refrigeration ice was gold? Not the warm, gleaming kind, but the cold, hard treasure that preserved food, kept drinks cool, and saved lives in summer's heat. It seems strange now, in this frozen moment, to think of ice as treasure. To you, it is more like an old, cruel friend, necessary but unforgiving. As you saw, your breath forms quick clouds, vanishing in the biting air. Fingers stiff despite the gloves. You adjust your grip, careful not to lose hold. Every minute feels stretched by the cold. Your body aches in places you never knew could ache. The blocks you cut must be perfect, uniform slabs that can be stacked and stored, too thick, and they become heavy beyond hauling. Too thin, and they shatter too easily. The craftsmanship is invisible to most, but to you, it's the difference between success and a wasted day. Once a block frees from the riverbed with a deep, echoing crack, it must be hauled to shore. You and your companions drag the heavy slabs on sleds, their weight a constant burden. The ice sometimes shifts beneath you, threatening a slip that could send you plunging into the icy water below. A sudden gust sweeps across the river, whipping cold air into your face, and you pull your scarf higher, wincing as the wind bites through. The cold is an enemy that never tires, always pressing, always present. Yet, despite the misery, there is a quiet pride. You are part of a rhythm older than any of you, a cycle of seasons and survival. The ice cutters before you worked these same rivers, carved these same blocks, fought the same cold. You glance down at your hands, red and cracked, knuckles white from gripping the saw too tightly. The numbness creeps up your arms like a slow frost. You try to ignore it, focusing instead on the next cut, the next block, the steady progress. Occasionally, a block will split cleanly, sliding free with a satisfying crack that sounds like triumph. You pause for a moment, savoring the brief victory. Then the work resumes, unrelenting. The river is a vast frozen expanse, and you are just one small figure moving steadily across its surface, carving away pieces of winter's heart. It is hard work, thankless and cold, but it must be done. As the day progresses, the cold begins to seep deeper, settling into your bones. Your breath is a constant cloud, your fingers stiff and slow. But still, you press on, because this is how life continues for you, for the village, for the summer meals that depend on this frozen harvest. The saw's song is your companion, the ice your adversary and ally. In this relentless dance, you find a strange, somber rhythm, a testament to endurance in a world ruled by cold and necessity. You feel the weight of the ice block before you even touch it, a solid, unyielding mass, heavy beyond words. It presses down on your hands as you grasp the ropes, your muscles straining beneath layers of frozen fatigue. The winter sky hangs low and pale, offering no comfort, no promise that this burden will lighten before the day ends. Dragging these slabs across the uneven, frozen shoreline is an ordeal of its own. Your boots slip on hidden ice, and the sled grinds harshly over frozen pebbles and jagged snow. The ice block shifts, threatening to tilt or break free, forcing you to steady it with aching arms. Your breath hitches with each step, sharp and shallow against the cold. You remember how you once thought this work would feel like gliding across a winter wonderland, graceful and easy. But the reality is a slow, grinding labor, a test of endurance that bruises both body and spirit. Each day here is a battle fought in silence. The only sounds, the scrape of sled on ice, the grunts of effort, and the distant caws of crows circling above. The cold is a constant companion, yielding, biting, indifferent. It gnaws at your skin, making fingers stiff and slow, turning lips chapped and cracked. Sometimes your face feels numb, as if carved from ice itself. Still, the ice must be moved. The blocks are the lifeblood of the warmer months, to come stored in dark cellars layered with sawdust or straw to slow the melt. Carried to town by merchants who trade them for coins that feed your family. Without this frozen treasure, food would spoil quickly, and the long, hot summer would bring hardship beyond measure. You lean into the task, shoulders squared against the cold wind, feet steady despite the slick ground. There is no room for hesitation here. Hesitation invites disaster: a fall, a broken block, a plunge into icy waters. Occasionally, the sled catches on a hidden bump, and the ice shifts dangerously. You curse under your breath, yanking hard on the ropes, muscles trembling with the effort. The block slides free with a crack, and your heart leaps, half from relief, half from dread. This work demands more than strength, demands patience and care. The ability to read the ice's subtle signals, the way it glints differently beneath the weak sun. The faint sound of cracking beneath your weight. One wrong move, one careless step, and the river will claim you. Around you, the other cutters work in similar slow, measured motions. Some talk quietly, their voices low and rough with cold. Others work in silence, lost in the endless task. The river holds them all in its frozen grip, a shared struggle that bonds even the most solitary of souls. You try to imagine the summer ahead, when the ice will be gone and the sun will burn hotter than it does now. How strange it will feel to live without the constant presence of cold, to taste warmth on your skin instead of frostbite. But that future is distant. For now, you are here hauling winter's burden across a frozen shore, sweat mixing with snow on your brow, muscles aching beneath the weight of the world. This is the miserable life of an ice cutter before refrigeration: a life carved from ice, sustained by cold, and marked by relentless labor. Every moment you spend on the ice carries a quiet threat. Beneath your boots, the river hides a secret. It is solid only by a delicate balance. A fragile dance between freezing cold and hidden water. The ice can crack without warning, a sudden fracture that turns the world upside down in a heartbeat. You learn early to respect this danger, to read the subtle signs beneath your feet, the faint, almost imperceptible sounds. The tiny spiderweb lines running across the surface, the way the ice shivers under weight. Your senses sharpen, tuned to the rhythm of the frozen world. Because a misstep here can mean a plunge into water so cold it steals your breath and numbs your soul. There is no room for recklessness. You move deliberately, balancing strength with caution. The saw must be wielded with care. One careless swing could shatter the block or send you tumbling. Your companions mirror your careful pace, each step a negotiation with risk. On more than one occasion, you've felt that sickening crack beneath your boots, a sound that turns your blood cold. Your heart pounds as you scramble for safer ground, praying that the ice will hold long enough. Sometimes, with a bit of luck and quick reflexes, you escape the river's grasp. Other times, you hear the distant shouts, the frantic splashes of someone less fortunate. The cold water is unforgiving, steals warmth with terrifying speed, turning fingers to ice, muscles to jelly, and hope to desperation. Rescue is difficult: slow sleds, heavy ropes, shouts carried off by the wind. Even with help, the water claims more than a few lives each winter. You carry this risk silently, an unspoken burden that adds weight to your already heavy task. The river is both a giver and a taker, providing the ice that sustains your village but demanding respect, caution, and sometimes sacrifice. Sometimes, when the sun dips low and the light fades, you pause to look out across the frozen expanse. The river is a mirror, reflecting the bruised sky, a vast and beautiful danger. In these quiet moments, you feel small and fragile, a single figure caught between earth and ice, between survival and surrender. And yet, despite the danger, you are drawn here each day. The rhythm of cutting, hauling, stacking is a strange kind of solace, is work that defines you, binds you to the land and the seasons. In the relentless cold, you find purpose. You know this winter will not last forever. Spring will come, the ice will melt, and the river will run free once more. But until then, you remain a sentinel of frost and labor, a craftsman of ice, walking the thin line between life and loss. The cold is not just something you feel on your skin. It is a slow, creeping presence that burrows deep into your bones. It is the ache that lingers long after you have left the ice, the invisible weight that drags you down when the work is done. You think you understand cold, sharp biting? Immediate, but this is different. It is a cold that seeps, that settles into your very marrow. Your fingers, though bundled tight in thick gloves, often betray you. Numbness is a constant companion, making simple tasks feel like feats of strength. Buttons resist your fumbling touch. Ropes slip from fingers that don't quite respond. You have learned to move deliberately, to coax your stiff joints into motion, but sometimes they refuse. The wind worsens everything. Cuts across the frozen landscape like a cruel blade, turning exposed skin raw and red. Your cheeks crack, your lips peel, and even your eyes water as the relentless gusts whip over the ice. You pull your scarf tighter, but the cold always finds a way in. At night, after long days spent battling frost and weight, the cold refuses to let go. It follows you home, nesting in your bones, stealing warmth while you sleep. You wake shivering beneath blankets that never seem thick enough, fingers stiff and slow as you begin the cycle anew. And then there are the small injuries, easily ignored in the rush of labor but never truly healed. Cuts from the saw, bruises from slipping slabs, aching backs bent under heavy burdens. Yet even amidst these torments, there is humor, the dry, bitter kind that survives in the coldest places. A shared joke between cutters about frozen noses, or the way your boots sound like ducks waddling over ice. It is a way to keep the spirit alive, when the world seems determined to freeze it out. You catch yourself smiling sometimes, the absurdity of it all washing over you. How strange it is to spend your days chopping blocks of ice, to risk frostbite and exhaustion. Also, others might enjoy cool drinks or fresh food in the sweltering summer months, but then the cold reminds you why you cannot stop. It whispers of survival and duty, of family dinners preserved and summer thirsts quenched. It is a harsh teacher, but one whose lessons you carry deep within. In this frozen world, you are both prisoner and master, a craftsman shaping the ice, and a subject to its whims. The cold is relentless, yet you endure. You adapt. You survive. The day stretches endlessly before you, a quiet expanse of frost and labor that blurs the line between dawn and dusk. Time feels different here, slowed by cold and repetition. Marked not by clocks, but by the steady beat of your saw and the weight of the blocks you haul. Hours pass in a haze of breath and muscle, the only sounds the rasp of blades on ice, the crunch of boots on snow, and the occasional murmur between cutters' low voices barely rising above the winter wind. These are your companions now: silence, cold, and the shared rhythm of work. You grow accustomed to this quiet world, to the way the river seems to hold its breath, waiting for your careful hands to carve it open. The frozen landscape wraps around you like a thick blanket, isolating you from the warmth of human chatter and the noise of the village.
Ow.
Loneliness is a strange feeling here. It's not quite solitude, but a distant separation from everything else. You are part of a small community, yet each of you is alone in the cold, locked in your own battle with ice and fatigue. Sometimes when the light fades and the cold deepens, you catch yourself staring out across the frozen expanse, searching for something beyond the endless white. Maybe it's a flicker of hope or a moment of peace, a reminder that life continues beyond the river's edge. Your hands ache and your back complains, but you keep moving, driven by a stubborn resolve that carries you through the longest hours. The ice is unforgiving, and so must you be. As the sun sinks lower, the temperature drops further, the cold turning sharper, more urgent. You hurry to finish what you can before the last light fades, knowing that night on the ice is a different kind of trial, darker, colder, and more dangerous. The sleds creak under the weight of heavy blocks, and you work in quiet coordination with your fellows. Moving as one against the winter's relentless grip, there are no grand words or speeches here, only the shared understanding that this work must be done, come what may. When at last the day's labor is over, and you retreat from the frozen river to the shelter of your cabin, exhaustion settles in like a thick fog. Your body is heavy, your breath shallow, but there is a small comfort in knowing you have carved out a piece of survival. You shed your frozen gear, the damp clothes, clinging to your skin, and sink into the sparse warmth of your hearth. The cold will never leave you entirely, but for now, it recedes just enough to let you rest. Tomorrow the cycle begins, again another day of cold, silence, and unyielding work. But tonight, In the quiet glow of the fire, you find a moment's peace. A brief reprieve from the relentless demands of winter. The season shifts imperceptibly, though you feel it deep in your bones, the slow, creeping promise of thaw. Each day, the ice becomes a little less reliable, a little more brittle beneath your feet. The sharp crack that once meant life or death now signals the end of your harshest labor. You move faster now, urgency seeping into every stroke of your saw, every haul of ice. The blocks you cut and carry are the final harvest of a long, bitter winter. These frozen slabs will sustain the village through the warmth to come, a fragile treasure against summer's relentless sun. The river, once a vast expanse of solid silver, begins to surrender. Thin patches appear, dark spots that warn you to tread lightly, to trust your instincts honed by years of danger. You watch the ice with wary eyes, knowing the end of the season brings both relief and new risks. Your body is weary, every muscle screaming beneath the cold and strain, yet you push on, driven by the knowledge that the work must be done before the river, as frozen veil melts away completely. The community depends on you, on these blocks of ice, carefully cut and stored. As you work, there is a quiet celebration in the air, an unspoken recognition of survival. The other cutters move with a tired grace, sharing glances that speak of shared endurance and unspoken relief. You exchange few words. There is little nettier exhaustion and determination. Say enough. The wind softens, the harsh bite of earlier months giving way to gentler breezes that carry hints of thawing earth and distant spring. You breathe these faint scents deeply, a reminder that warmth will return, that life will awaken again. But for now, winter still holds its grip, and you remain tethered to the frozen river. The last blocks slide free with satisfying cracks, and you stack them carefully, knowing each one is a small victory against the inevitable melt. There is a fragile hope in this work, a hope that the ice will last in the cellars, and that the cold you have captured will stretch far enough into summer to ease hunger and thirst. It is a hope that balances precariously on the edge of frost and water. When at last the river softens beyond safe crossing and the cutters retreat, you feel a quiet emptiness. The rhythm of winter's work, the relentless labor that defined your days, falls away like the melting ice. You carry the weight of that loss silently, knowing that next year will bring the cycle again, a return to cold, to saws and sleds, to the miserable, beautiful life carved from ice. The river is silent now, a dark ribbon flowing beneath a thinning crust of ice. The heavy blocks are gone, stored away like fragile memories in cool cellars and shaded barns. Stand at the edge of the thawing water, feeling the last chill slipping from the air, replaced by the soft breath of early spring. There is a strange emptiness in this moment. The work that once consumed your days now ended, leaving only quiet and reflection. The familiar rhythm of saw and sled has fallen silent. You find yourself listening instead to the gentle ripple of water and the distant song of returning birds. You remember the months past, each day etched in frost and effort, every cut a small defiance against the inevitability of thaw. The cold had been a harsh companion, demanding and unyielding. Yet through it, you forged a connection to the land, the seasons, and the unseen hands of those who would rely on your labor. Now, as the ice melts and the river returns to its fluid state, you feel the weight of what is past. The misery of frozen mornings and aching limbs fades, replaced by a quiet pride in your survival and your craft. The blocks you cut will keep the village fed and refreshed through heat and drought, a frozen gift that endures beyond the season. In these soft hours, you find space to dream, a glimpse of warmth on your skin, the taste of fresh fruit, the laughter of children playing in sunlit fields, the promise of life renewed. Yet even in this gentle thaw, the cold lingers in your bones, a reminder that winter is never far away. The river's cycle will turn again, and you will be called once more to the edge of ice and water, to the relentless dance of saw and sweat. For now, you carry the memory of ice, the shimmer of frost in the dawn light, the sharp crack of a block freed, the bitter bite of cold on your face. You carry it like a secret, a story written in the language of winter. The work is over, but the life of an ice cutter is never quite done. It is a story told in cycles, in seasons, in the patient waiting, in the steady labor that holds the world together. As the thaw deepens and the river frees itself from winter's grasp, you stand quietly, watching the last pieces of ice drift away like fragile memories. The frozen world you carved, bit by aching bit, dissolves into flowing water and warmer air. Yet the life you've lived through these months remains a legacy of endurance, hardship, and quiet pride. You think of the families whose food you helped preserve, the merchants who carried your frozen labor to markets far beyond this cold place. You think of summers cooled by ice blocks stacked in dark cellars, of warm nights brightened by chilled drinks, and you realize the invisible hand you held in those moments. Your work was hard, sometimes miserable, often unforgiving. It demanded every ounce of strength and patience, and yet it carried a dignity all its own. You were part of a vital cycle, a timeless rhythm between man and nature, cold and warmth, survival and comfort. Though the machines of refrigeration will one day replace you, you know the story of ice cutters will linger in whispered memories and worn tools. It is a tale of frostbitten fingers, cracked faces, and backs bent beneath winter's heavy burden, but also a story of stubborn hope and quiet resilience. Tonight, as you settle by the hearth, the cold no longer biting quite so fiercely, you close your eyes and feel the river's pulse beneath the ice. You remember the saw's rasp, the crack of a block sliding free, the fleeting sparkle of frost dust in the sun. These memories are yours, frozen breaths held against time. And when the seasons turn again, when winter returns its cold grasp to the world, you will rise once more. You will greet the frozen river, the heavy blocks, the biting wind, and the relentless labor, knowing that this is your story in, enduring dance with the cold that shaped your life, and in small ways, shaped the world. Thank you for walking this frozen path with me through bitter winds and heavy burdens. A story etched in frost and whispered by the river's thaw. If this gentle tale brought you peace, please consider subscribing so we may share more quiet journeys together. Like the ice that lingers just a moment longer, your presence here warms this cold story. Rest well, and until next time, may your nights be calm and your dreams as soft as falling snow.